The NBA, like most professional sports in general, is unfortunately very much a "what have you done for me lately" league, where fans and analysts tend to focus mostly on the most recent output from a player or team. Of course, there are always times to reflect on the full body of work, but more often than not, people overreact to everything in the moment, and when you're a star player in the NBA, you're under constant pressure to build on the successes you've had in the past. This brings us to today's video, where we'll be discussing 5 star players in particular that desperately need to have a bounce-back season this year after having underwhelming and disappointing seasons last year in order to salvage their reputations in the eyes of many. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first disappointing star player in desperate need of a bounce-back season this year is Luka Doncic of the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, Luka Doncic has set such a high bar for himself that his quote-unquote down year still exceeds 99.9% of the league, but nonetheless, last season still definitely counts as a disappointment compared to the standards we know he's capable of performing at. The year started on the wrong foot with him struggling through some nagging knee and groin pain, so he wasn't even at 100% health to kick things off, and then on Christmas Day he suffered a calf injury that set him back even more and forced him to miss about a month and a half of games. Before that happened though, his individual numbers had taken a slight dip, and his front office used this as an opportunity to do the boldest thing I think many of us fans have ever seen from a front office. Out of nowhere, the Mavericks chose to trade Luka to the Lakers, and in the aftermath took every opportunity offered to them to slander his name, calling him out of shape and lazy, criticizing his defense, and insinuating that they're better off without him. Mind you, Luka literally just led them to the NBA Finals less than a year prior. Nevertheless, by the time he recovered from his injury, he was suiting up for a new team, and his tenure with the Lakers never quite felt like he was settled in from then through the playoffs. While I, and probably most of you, think that the Mavericks front office went a bit overboard, it is simultaneously true that Luka's scoring numbers dipped, going from averaging a league-leading 34 points per game in 2024 to only putting up about 28 per game last year, and he dished out 2 fewer assists per game last season as well, while being targeted on defense time after time in the playoffs. The Western Conference just got even stronger this offseason, so if the Lakers want to stay afloat and have any chance of repeating as a top 3 seed or better, they will need Luka Doncic from 2 years ago to do so, because there are still quite a few holes in this Lakers rotation that could be covered up if Luka is playing at an MVP level like we know he can. The next star player in need of a bounce-back year this season is Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid was the league's MVP just 2 years ago, and to follow that up, in 2024 he was having arguably the most dominant season in modern history before he tore his meniscus, and that meniscus tear has been at the center of everything he's done basketball-related ever since. He rushed back from it to try to salvage that 2024 season in the playoffs, and while he played well through that injury against the Knicks in the first round, that year it wasn't enough. And then last season, the nagging effects of rushing things and playing through it took its toll, and he looked like a shell of his former self in the short amount of time that he was able to play. Embiid only played in 19 games last season because of those knee issues, and in those 19 games, he averaged just 24 points and 8 rebounds per game, while shooting the worst he ever has in his career, from both the field and from 3. 24 and 8 is still nothing to scoff at, but again, when he's at full strength, there genuinely may not be a more talented player in the game, and the fact that all of that potential may be gone for good is a tough thing to swallow. He got shut down for good last year in February, and the hope is that by taking a real extended amount of time off to just rest it and allow that knee to recover properly, it will alleviate the pain and allow him to at least find some semblance of health the next time he touches the court. But if that doesn't happen, then his gargantuan supermax contract is going to become a problem for the 76ers. Embiid is owed $242 million over the next 4 years. The Sixers are all in on the near future being their final chances to put a contender around him, and on paper, the Sixers do have the tools to compete with anybody in the East, but the only way they'll even be able to have a chance of doing that is with Joel Embiid on the court without knee issues holding him back, which is why this year, Joel needs to bounce back to prove that those lofty goals are still worth chasing. That leads us to the next star player in desperate need of a bounce-back season, being Joel Embiid's teammate on the 76ers, Paul George. George was the team's marquee free agency signing last summer, marking an all-in effort for the team to try to compete for a title, but instead, as I just went over, the season was marred by injuries, and Joel Embiid wasn't the only one who caught the injury bug. Paul George strained his knee early last season, and that lingered throughout the first half of the year, forcing him to miss games here and there and try to quell the pain, but his production on the court was clearly hampered, and after being an all-star with the Clippers in 2024, he no longer looked anything close to being a star in Philadelphia. His first step wasn't nearly as quick as it once was, he couldn't generate separation, he wasn't as aggressive on offense as we're used to seeing, and his numbers took a nosedive across the board. He averaged just 16 points per game, which is by far the fewest amount of points he's averaged in a season in over a decade. He shot the second worst mark from his career from 3, and by February, he too had been shut down to heal up after a season that was already lost by then, and with the Sixers plummeting down the standings, that contributed too. Paul George is 35 years old, so there's no good reason to believe that his days as an all-star caliber player are going to be able to continue, but that doesn't mean he can't bounce back and still be a net positive at full strength this year. The Sixers are heavily invested in him, paying him $162 million over the next 3 seasons, and on paper, the Sixers roster has the talent to match up with anybody, but that won't happen if Paul George has a repeat of last year. The next star player in desperate need of a bounce-back season is LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo's on a slippery slope right now, falling down the path of the quote-unquote empty stats type of players that get forgotten by time. After his career got off to a flying start by winning the Rookie of the Year award, and then following that up by being named an All-Star in year 2, his career has been trending in the wrong direction ever since. Don't be fooled by what the box score numbers are telling you, his game is not really improving. He's just getting more usage and opportunity than anybody in the league not named Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. LaMelo Ball may have just averaged a career-high 25 points per game, but he also shot the ball worse than he ever has in his career, both from the field and from 3, with his efficiency ranking well below league average, which, by the way, that scoring efficiency of his has gotten worse 3 of the last 4 years now. He just took the second most shots per game in the NBA last season, ranking only behind league MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that mark, and the shot quality does not compare to SGA's at all. On top of all of that, LaMelo is another player that has struggled with injuries, playing in just 105 out of 246 games from the last 3 seasons, which is less than half. The Hornets have been rebuilding for far too long now with no results to show for it, so this may be the last season that the team views LaMelo Ball as their franchise player leading this era, unless he starts to reel in that shot selection, steps it up on defense, proves he can stay on the court, and leads the Hornets out of the basement of the standings. And finally, the last star player we'll be discussing in desperate need of a bounce-back year is Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are undergoing a lot of changes lately, and this upcoming season may be the make-it-or-break-it year to decide if Ja Morant will still be their leader moving forward. After starting his career on a superstar trajectory, ranking amongst the league leaders in scoring and leading the Grizzlies team to a 2-seed finish in both 2022 and 2023, 2023, things have been all downhill for Morant ever since. Last year, according to several reports, Ja Morant was butting heads with coaches a lot because the team tried to implement a new offensive scheme, and to be blunt, Ja Morant hated that new offensive scheme. He seemed disinterested throughout a lot of the season, his production on the court slipped, putting up 23 points per game, which is the fewest he's averaged in 5 years. He averaged a career high in turnovers per game, and when all of this bad energy led to their season slipping away from a lengthy losing streak, the organization ended up firing head coach Taylor Jenkins. The Grizzlies now have a new head coach, a new system more to Morant's liking, and a new look team after having traded away Desmond Bane this offseason. The ball will be back in Ja Morant's hands more like it was back in 2022. The team around him is deep, and the situation is setting him up for success, so now it's all on him to prove that he can regain his prior 2022 form and lead the Grizzlies back into the mix in the Western Conference. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which players you think are under the most pressure to bounce back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.